You always thought that people actually care about you, and that's why you readily give them your trust. But if you stick around until the end of this video, you might just stop blindly trusting people and start understanding and utilizing how human nature really works. If you genuinely believe that everyone around you has your back, then this video isn't for you, because today we are diving into a level of psychology where you don't just survive the game, you control it. I have broken this down into 3 distinct parts, so you can not only understand it but actively apply it. First, you'll see what this mental game actually is, and why it's far more dangerous than you think. Second, we will descend into the dark side, where people read you just to control you, and where every smile carries a hidden motive. Finally, you will learn how to master this so you never become a puppet in someone else's hands, ensuring the strings stay firmly in yours. Think about it. If you could view your own mind from the outside, would you still make the same choices you make right now? True control begins right there, by observing your own way of thinking. Most people live life on level 1. An emotion hits them, and they instantly react on autopilot. They feel anger, so they scream. They feel fear, so they step back. This lacks questioning and zero hesitation, which is exactly why it almost always turns into regret. But there is a completely different level, where you don't just feel an emotion, you watch yourself feeling it. Instead of reacting, you ask yourself why you feel this way, whether it serves you, and what will happen if you act on it. This is the dividing line between the person being played and the person running the entire game. To master this, you need 3 core skills, starting with emotional intelligence. You cannot control your emotions until you truly understand them. When an advanced mind feels a sudden surge of anger, it pauses, steps back and analyzes it. It questions if the anger is real, or if it's just a cover for insecurity, exhaustion, or a fear of losing control. The moment you identify the actual root emotion, you create a powerful space between the trigger and your reaction. This is where your power lives. You stop being a slave to your impulses and become the strategist. By simply labeling your emotion, admitting to yourself that you are feeling overwhelmed, you immediately drain its power over you. Suddenly, you can read others too. You see that the person acting angry is actually terrified, and the one withdrawing is just ashamed. To build this power, take just 30 seconds whenever a strong emotion hits to ask yourself what triggered it and what it's trying to tell you. The emotions you don't understand will rule you, but the ones you recognize will serve you. The next step is even more critical because it moves from your emotions to your thoughts. You like to believe your thoughts are entirely your own, but the truth is that most of them are just random scripts floating into your head that you blindly accept as truth. When that inner voice tells you that you aren't good enough or that people don't like you, you believe it without question. That is your biggest mistake. Not every thought is a fact, and not every thought deserves your attention. You need to implement a mental security system, a process called thought tracking. Whenever a limiting thought enters your mind, pause and demand to know if it is based on reality or just amplified fear. If a thought says, "I can't do this," an ordinary person quits, but a strategic mind demands to know where that thought originated, what evidence supports it, and what evidence proves it wrong. By shifting your brain from the emotional center to the logical, decision-making center, you reclaim your freedom. Try writing down just one negative thought at the end of every day and systematically dismantle it. You will quickly stop operating out of fear and start moving with cold strategy. This leads directly into strategic observation, the skill that puts you miles ahead of everyone else. Most people listen to words, but they don't actually listen to the intent. They look at faces, but they miss the truth. A strategic mind operates on 2 levels simultaneously. It engages in the conversation while objectively observing the entire scene from the outside. You begin to notice the subtle micro-expressions, the shifts in vocal tone, and the hesitation before a response. If you pitch an idea and someone laughs it off to subtly diminish your authority, an average person gets defensive or goes quiet. A strategic mind recognizes the power play instantly, refuses to react emotionally, and quietly shifts the dynamic without making a scene. You stop seeing people for who they pretend to be and start seeing them for who they actually are. But this is where we enter the dark side, where these exact skills become weapons and empathy is entirely stripped away. When someone uses this knowledge to manipulate, they don't force you to do what they want, they make you choose to do it. A manipulator maps your insecurities and weaponizes your fears. They might systematically lower your self-worth until you constantly crave their validation, making you believe they are the only person who truly understands you. They might mirror your likes, your tone, and your personality just to build an artificial bond and gain access to your mind. They use insidious techniques like thought planting, casually dropping a suggestive comment that takes root in your head until, weeks later, you make a drastic decision believing it was entirely your own idea. They use tactical silence to make you anxious so you scramble to fill the void with information. Or they play the victim to collect your emotional data and hook you with guilt. To completely immunize yourself against these psychological traps, you must learn to step outside of yourself. When someone tries to trigger you, look at yourself in the third person and acknowledge your own vulnerability without reacting to it. Create a deliberate gap between their action and your response, because that silence is where your absolute control lives. Identify exactly who is trying to push your buttons and why. When you realize what they are after, their power over you instantly vanishes. However, the ultimate trap of this knowledge is trying to use it solely to control others. True power is never about manipulating the people around you. It is about absolute mastery over yourself. If you don't control your own mind, all of this strategy will eventually be used against you. Use silence as a position of strength, map out the behavioral patterns of the people around you, and stop treating every narrative your brain invents as an absolute fact. When you stop reacting to every bait thrown your way, you become completely unpredictable. People won't be able to read you or manipulate you because you are no longer acting on impulse, you are acting on deliberate choice. As you master this, you might find that you feel a bit more detached or isolated from the crowd, but remember that this solitude isn't weakness, it is the ultimate indicator that you have broken free from the collective autopilot. Do not use this edge to destroy others or to build a cold, empty shell around yourself. Use it to build an unshakable foundation for your own growth. The next time someone tries to slight you or manipulate you, your victory won't be in a loud confrontation. It will be in the quiet realization that they couldn't move your emotional needle even a fraction of an inch. You are no longer a pawn on their board. You see the entire game clearly, and you are finally the one designing your next move.